So half guard. We're going to cover the basics. So one of the biggest things that I've seen is people have a very ineffective method of getting off of their back. Very ineffective methods. There's not that many really good ways. You kind of just got to pick your method and run with it. It just kind of depends on what you're used to doing, okay? So one of the main things to remember about playing bottom side is there's two distinctions here to be made, framing and hooking, all right? Framing is used when we're trying to keep a person away from us. So when you're wanting to recover your guard or you're wanting to maintain distance, we are using framing. Now there's frames that we can use all over our body. We can use a hand as a portion of a frame. We can use forearms. We can use shins. We can use the bottoms of our feet. And there's a lot of framing points. We'll get into that a little bit later this week. Hooking is what we're using when we're trying to pull a person to us or restrict their ability to move away. Now, you have to understand how and when to move in and out of these two different areas here between hooking and framing at all different points. Okay, so you may want to be framing at one point and then instantly something changes and you're trying to hook. Case in point, you're framing on a person, you've established the guard structure that you want. Now you start moving to hooking and trying to limit their ability to back away, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna look at is just the basics of half guard. Now this is very rudimentary, it's very basic. So half guard, we talk about two different types or two different styles of half guard. We're gonna talk about is a locked half guard, and then we're gonna talk about an open half guard, okay? Or a closed or an open, however you wanna look at it. A closed half guard is going to be this triangling method of the legs on the outside. Now I'm going to tell you right now, by and large, this is kind of a dead art. The old school, very old method of locking down half guard. You see it more, I think, in MMA than you see anywhere, because when you're on bottom here for MMA purposes, it's a completely different world. You don't want them to be able to separate, to sit up, get separation, and do what? Punch. I mean, and that separation can happen from the hips, okay? So we want to control his ability, we want to keep him down, and we certainly want to have an underhook, and we want to stay on top of or keep him ultra close while we're in half guard. So you don't see, in sport jiu-jitsu, you don't see a lot of use of the half guard as an entire system. In MMA, you see it a lot where they're locking down this leg right here, and they're constantly trying to get their head in here to prevent what? They're just trying to prevent the strikes. They're not really worried about anything other than just getting knocked out here. Okay, so for us, we're going to move in and out of the closed and open half guards for various reasons, but I'm always going to advocate that you immediately start to familiarize yourself with the open half guard variants, okay? Ideally, knee shield, and then what I call V-guard, okay? Now this is, some may call it a half butterfly. There's a bunch of different ways. Back when I started using this, it was not as popular that I had ever seen. I always just called it V-guard because my legs are making a V right here. So I have to step on top of my calf. So first thing that we want to understand here is what are the principles of half guard? Principles are, he wants to accomplish a couple things. The first thing he wants to do is he wants to establish some form of head control, and that's going to come from this hand. If he can establish head control, then he can accomplish his second objective, which is to do what? Flatten me out. Once he flattens me out, he can now start to make his run through his passing sequence, okay? Now, right now, you're seeing a big drive to take people to half guard and isolate and pass. Frankly, I like it. I love it. I think it looks really good, and I think it's very effective. Who that started with, I don't know, but of course, you know, Ryan's making a big run with this. And Lackland Giles and all those guys, they're really working this with the body lock passing, especially if we're talking nogi. So what I mean by getting to half guard and passing is, let's just say I'm going to give Seth any variant he wants to pass an open guard from standing, or open half guard from like kneeling right here. He can use anything aside from getting to like a traditional flattened out half guard. He can use knee cuts, whatever. Go pick one and run. Okay, so yep, there's my knee cut, and he cuts right through. Okay. Notice this is more of a dynamic movement-based style of passing. What he's going to do now is he's going to fight to a traditional half guard where he pins me flat on my back, and then he can start working to work his passes, whether it be a knee cut or a mount or whatever. One of the biggest ones right now is a cross knee mount. So if he gets here, he's just going to clear that knee and start working to get into a flattened out half guard, and now his entire world comes open. High elbows, he starts working to cut that knee across. Now he can cut into mount. This is probably one of the more popular sequences right now that we're seeing at the higher levels. I think everybody's really trying to do this. Just saw this at the Pans with several guys. Felipe Andrew just did it, and it's very uncharacteristic for him and the gi. So it's a big deal here. So the first thing we want to understand is controlling this here is paramount for me. I cannot let him at any point in time have head control or cross face control. Now once I've got, even if I'm here and he gets his hips in close, I can still fight the cross face. Okay, and I have to control this cross face. I have to be on my side as well. The other objective for me is I cannot allow myself to fight the cross face from flat on my back. Call this like lazy. And you see what starts to happen. Ultimately, he's just going to start to win this war of attrition because he got me on my side. Okay? So the key here to remember for all of us is as we work half guard, this is the area we're talking about. You cannot allow yourself to get even quartered over here on this side. The battle becomes for being on your side. If you can stay on your side, you're going to be okay. Now there's some keys to being able to stay on your side, the forming of frames. So assuming that we've gotten flattened out, this is kind of where we start the lesson here. He's gotten a cross face. I've messed up. This is bottom, rock bottom, worst case scenario. And we see everybody get stuck here because they don't have really a great method for getting out of here. The first thing that we have to do is we have to control the head. We have to offset the head, and I need to get a frame. This will not work, and I can't tell you how many times I see this from newer grapplers, and I'm going, what is this? What we're holding them to us, is that a hook or is it a frame? Which one is it? It's more of a hook. It's keeping him with me when I don't want to keep him with me. I need to create some space. The problem becomes when they're playing ultra heavy and I don't really have the ability to get my hand inside. This is the problem. Now my head's turned. Sucks, right? I've got to come up with something here. The body will go where the head goes. The weakest part of his structure right now is right here. This space about an inch from the crown of his head, okay, down. I don't want to affect him down here because ultimately what I want to do is I want to be able to get my hand in front like this. So if my hand's in front, this is where I want to be. So I've got a frame underneath his chin. The harder that he presses, the more it hurts his throat. Okay? So it gives me some form of a frame. It's just keeping him from getting his head to the mat. It's also keeping him from pinning my cross shoulder. The dominance becomes for him once he flattens me out. So let's say this. He's kind of got me flattened out, but what is floating right now on me? What part of me is floating? This is not on the mat. He has not controlled my cross-side shoulder. So if he ultimately wants to control my cross-side shoulder, getting this hand out, now I'm in trouble. Okay, this is where you see the passes start. So my last ditch effort here is to make sure that this shoulder stays floating, where I at least have the ability to move it some, okay? So with my hand on the back of the head, if he's real savvy and he understands he's already beaten the crossface, that's a win. He's already kind of pretty much semi-flattened me out, that's a win. Now he understands he needs to pin the high side shoulder, okay? So the only way that I can stop this from this point is I have to affect the head. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna come right up off the crown of the head. Right hand, palm of my hand is gonna come inside the hip, okay? Inside the hip here, I'm going to offset the head by just simply reaching over my head. And then my next frame is gonna have to be down here because even though I can get this head offset a little bit, I still can't get my hand in front. I'm not in an ideal position. I need to get to my what? Side. That's the only goal. So what's going to help me do that is I check his hip, which keeps him from coming into me and keeps him from switching his hips. Because what I don't want to do is him to switch his hips inside and get to here. Because now if he buries his head, now I'm even more stuck. And he's kind of got this reverse queso position. And now he's looking to drive the knee across, probably right in mount, same thing. So what we have to do here is we have to control this hip. He cannot be allowed to cave that side in because I want to scoot out, right? Notice I'm blocking here, so my elbow goes down. Now he can't roll his hip inside. He's framed against my elbow right here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the apex of my arm here, the bend of my arm right across kind of the top side of his head, and both of my feet are going to go down. If I just put one down, I run into this problem. Okay, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to spike both of my feet down on the outside of his leg, pinched together. I'm going to lift my hips and I'm going to offset his head just enough to help me get to my what? Now I'm going to scoot away a little bit more to get my next frame in, which is my knee shield. Okay? Knee shield is hyper important. So now that I've gotten the knee shield, okay, he's probably still hanging on. Well, he's a higher level guy, he's not going to. Most stupid guys are going to still hold on like idiots right here, and I've got a knee shield in. I got to deal with the cross face now. So now that I'm here, I can start to push away and I can start to work this hand inside for my second frame. Now, once I get in here, now he's in trouble because I can recruit my second hand to start breaking those frames, that grip loose. And ultimately, I wind up in my standard knee shield. Okay, so here, he's flattened me out, worst case scenario. Hand in the hip to prevent the hip switch. I gotta find this side, gotta find it, the part that affects his head the most. I'm gonna arch, offset him enough to scoot and get my knee shield inside. If he's smart, he'll break loose and start working backwards, which is what any good guy's gonna do. They're probably not gonna sit there and just hold you, okay? So for purposes of the drill, I'm here, block, need to apex the head here, okay? So I'm gonna offset, boom. Still tight, can't really get in. I can do it again if I want. Stretch him out. Now I've got my solid knee shield, okay? One right here. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna build up to the elbow. Gotta build up to the elbow defensively. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.